Highly successful individuals are always focused on what's next, but they often don't take time to reflect on their journey and how far they've come. I'm Craig Heatherly, host of the Path Less Traveled podcast, where we dive into the journeys of extraordinary leaders. Their success rarely follows a straight path, and that's what makes their story so remarkable. Now let's dive into this week's episode after a brief message from our sponsors.
Success changes the game. Your business is growing. New opportunities, ambitious goals, greater impact. But growth brings complexity. More people to lead, more moving parts, less time and space to think and connect. And when leaders feel that strain, teams do too. At Cressy Leadership, we help leaders navigate those challenges. Through individual coaching, group training, and our Leadership Academy, we build the skills and strengthen the connections that make growth sustainable, helping teams communicate openly, tackle challenges together, and stay aligned on what matters most. Cressy Leadership. Envision what's possible.
A big thank you to Senior One Care for sponsoring today's episode. Founded in 2006 by Carl and Kyle Bossing, this family-owned business has provided compassionate in-home care for nearly 2 decades. If my family needed a caregiver, I'd call Kyle. With 6 Indiana locations, they give you the peace of mind while your loved ones receive the care they deserve. Learn more at senioronecare.com. Welcome to the Path Less Travel podcast. This week, we feature Craig Brummell, the COO of ABRO Industries. Craig, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I'm excited to get into a lot of different things here with your background, with this room that we're in. Such a neat space, and excited for the listeners on a local level to learn more about ABRO, because you guys are coming on a local level, U.S. level, and we'll get into all the different markets you guys are in globally. But this is interesting. Usually the person that I interview has been in their seat for a long time. As I read this press release, January 29th, 2026 is when the press release went out. You've been on the job for about a month and a half.
I'm a newbie. I'm a veteran by now, but yes.
Tell us about what brought you to ABRO.
Yeah, it's been a really neat opportunity that came up. You know, ABRO has been in the business for 75 plus years. Peter Baronet joined about 45 years ago after his father's passing. So he took over at a very young age. He was in his early 20s. He had already had a life, a new job, and this opportunity presented it. And he stepped into this role, creating a generational company, global company.
Yeah.
We operate 150 different countries. So 3 different continents around the world, which is just phenomenal and fascinating.
150.
And Peter, who has been actively and still remains actively involved in the business, is also, he's looking to maybe step back a little bit, a little less involvement, spend some time with his wife, Nancy, who's a lovely human. And so he's been looking for someone to come in on a day-to-day basis and help provide some additional leadership. And so the opportunity presented itself to me that I just found fascinating, which was, this is someone that had created 45 years of just generational opportunities.
Right.
And now I have the privilege to look at what does the next 45 to 50 years look like. And so it presented an opportunity that was unique, unusual. We're a small, 30 plus person company, but mighty and proven company around the world. And to be able to help lead the next generation, what's the next chapter look like, just was a tremendous opportunity.
In 150 different countries, headquartered in South Bend, small, mighty team. Tell us what ABRO is.
Sure. ABRO, we focus on manufacturing and distribution of home and automotive products. So you can look at, we have thousands of products that we provide to distributors around the world. So it's fascinating. If you look at our customers, they are often second, third generation companies in various countries. And there's a demand and need in those countries for these products. So they've got a car. Maybe they're older cars. They need good care. They need, they like it to look nice, or they need some oil or other things. So there's a huge demand for these products across the world, whether it be home or automotive. And ABRO has built a well-known preferred brand in the market for 45 years. And so when you talk to people internationally, they know ABRO. When you go into stores, you see ABRO within it. So it has grown, and our distributors have asked us to grow. Hey, can you produce this type of product? Sure, let's see what we can do. What they know about us is, one, they're going to get good quality. Two, they're going to get a fair price. Three, they'll get consistency, especially with some of the supply chain craziness that's been happening. Are you going to run me on my product or not? And four is just, will you provide the service level that's needed? And that's a bit of our secret sauce. We are I would say, a relationship company. We're known for our tapes. That's where we started, masking tape, duct tape, and others, and expanded to where we are. But we're really deeply, deeply relational in who we are and how we are.
Automotive and home maintenance products. What's the product line? How many do you guys have?
We are in the thousands of products and SKUs that we have. So it has grown based on need and demand. So we started with, 1, 2, 3 products back 45 years ago. Peter will tell the story. Masking tape was our primary product. That was the leading in the industry, but it's expanded into thousands based on demand, based on market.
Incredible. Part of that press release that I was reading, excited about you leading, Peter had mentioned he's excited about you leading, kind of helping lead the next 45 years internationally, but also domestically.
That's right.
And I've been an observer of ABRO for some time now, and see that there's been postings and pictures of, I think it was AutoZone and Tractor Supply. I mean, tell us about kind of the growth that's happening here domestically and the focus there.
That's right. So as I've said, the bulk of our focus has been internationally, and building that recognition and consistency has been our primary focus, and will continue to be. We'll continue to grow and expand internationally. But a natural step for us has been to look here domestically, and it's a wonderful time for us to do it. Mike Molnar is leading our USA business. He has developed some tremendous relationships, and we're, as the market goes in the US of creating brand awareness, you first have to go online. And so we've been on Amazon. Yeah. We're starting to get on AutoZone and Tractor Supplies and some of these other providers, and to create brand awareness. And the beautiful thing about it is it's not that we're a startup. It's not that the US may not recognize the ABRO name, but it is globally proven. And so now it's more of an education, and it's more of bringing what we've been doing to the US. And so we see a great opportunity to expand in the US, to grow, to provide products in a time when pricing really matters and service really matters. We feel like we can do that as well as anybody.
I find it interesting, actually fascinating that, as we mentioned your small but mighty team, you mentioned an individual, Mike, that's leading U.S. growth initiatives.
That's right. That's right.
That's quite the challenge.
It is. What's fascinating about Mike is, and he's been with us for quite a while and has led some of our portfolio internationally. So he has experience. He knows our product. He knows how to navigate the business. Yeah. But over the last 3 years, he has almost single-handedly opened doors in the market to just create relationships and starting to create a revenue stream for us that says we can do this here. So he's one of those entrepreneurial guys that just figures out how to get things done. So I'm excited to have him on the team and helping us lead this opportunity.
Well, tell me about, as you step into this role as Chief Operating Officer, what do you bring to the table? What are the strengths of yours that you think you can hit the ground running and help ABRO grow over the next whatever time period?
Yeah, I think that there's a few things. Part of the beautiful situation within ABRO right now is things are working. Yeah. We are successful. So it's not a matter of something's broke. what someone like myself brings is a few things. One is I think we have an opportunity to continue to strengthen our operations. How do we improve? How do we, as we look at streamlining and improving and just being more efficient, those are always opportunities we have. And I've worked in many different companies. I've been in consulting. I've been in industry. I've been in family owned and run businesses. So I have a lot of different contexts that I feel like I can bring within that. I think the second is I'm really big, especially from a leadership perspective, around alignment. So how do we make sure where it makes sense, we're aligned as an organization? We operate in 6 geographical divisions, and our leaders, our sales leaders, have almost self-contained teams in each of those divisions. And they're amazing what they're able to do. And they run fast and quick and an entrepreneurial way to provide the services needed. So part of my role is how do I support them?
Right.
What do they need and what do their teams need? So some of my role is to see the teams and help support, sometimes to stay out of the way. Mm-hmm. But the third thing I would say is just to provide focus, aligned to strategy. So we have some things like growth in the US as one of our strategies. We have a brand new warehouse we're ramping up in Panama that's going to allow us to really service, especially Latin America, South America, and some of the other countries that are near there in ways we haven't done before. So that ramp up process is really significant within there. So to really refine and enhance our strategy and then ask the questions, what do the next 45 years look like? And then how do we want to position ourselves for that is part of my role as I've come in.
Wow. Well, shifting kind of the gears a little bit more towards your leadership journey, and I'm confident more information about ABRO will come out in this. But the title of the podcast is The Path Less Traveled. And you mentioned the word alignment. Thinking about your background, how do you align with that title and what comes to mind with your path?
I think my path has been an interesting one and a blessed one, frankly. I started out in accounting of all places. So I got my CPA, worked in public accounting, formerly known Arthur Anderson, that is no longer alive and well, unfortunately. I did that for 3 years, but I knew accounting, I wasn't going to be a CFO. I wasn't going to be a controller. It wasn't the path that felt right for me. So part of my journey is, and when I even look at leadership, is alignment with self, alignment internally, right? And then what does that look externally? So I shifted from accounting into consulting. We were building a consulting business in Arthur Anderson. There were some opportunities to jump in there. There was a woman who subsequently became a mentor of mine that I joined. And that's where it was ducked water. It was being able in the consulting world, business process, reengineering, technology, deployment, large scale, change management, strategy. Those things were all new to me, but really interesting, something that I love to learn about. And so that started my journey around how do I align those things? And almost every role I've had subsequent to that was how do I align strategy? How do I align people? How do I align processes? And how do I align technology to achieve the goals and the benefits, both individually and organizationally?
This episode is brought to you by Mosier Consulting, the powerhouse behind some of the most innovative technology solutions in Northern Indiana. For 30 years, Mosier has been delivering best-in-class solutions. Mosier is your partner in progress. With deep expertise in analytics, AI, managed services, Microsoft, IT savings, and strategic consulting, they don't just support your tech, they elevate your entire business. Mosier Consulting, technology experts, real results. Visit mosierit.com to learn more. How have you taken the knowledge and deepened that? Has that been just through lived experiences? Has that been through, further education? I guess for the young leader that's hearing you speak, like I get excited hearing these things, but with like some 19-year-old, well, how do I do that?
That's right. Well, it's interesting because I have opportunities to talk to many young people. I have 4 young people as kids. They're from ages 20 or 19 to now 25 years old. So there's a lot of young people who are trying to find their way. And And I often will have conversations around, should I go get an MBA? Should I go get a master's degree?
Yeah.
I never did. I felt like my life has been an MBA. I have been fortunate enough. I've worked in 2 different consulting organizations and learned a ton, consulting to hundreds of different companies. I've worked in industry, Fortune 500 companies, number 35 of a startup company I've been in. And I've worked in, 3 now family owned and run businesses. And so that breadth and depth has allowed me to learn and grow in ways some I'd like to say is all planned and all intentional, but in many respects, it's how life has taken me, opportunity has taken me. And that's how I've grown. And as I talk to young people, I talk about building out the skills. Some may say go deep and specialize. It's not wrong. I took a path that was more generalized, which allows me to understand strategies, allows me to take a lot of different concepts, bring them together, create and structure and drive the work necessary to achieve the results. That's through learning project management, critical thinking, understanding and learning different businesses. And so that's been more of my journey. I love that. I sometimes look back and think, wow, I've been so fortunate to be able to have that as part of my growth.
I think in every industry, you think of, and I'm looking in this room right now, I'm looking at all the product line, and it's wide. And your experience, it's wide. And there's absolutely advantages to going deep, become very micro niched in whatever you do. But I think the biggest element in all this is, how do you show up every day? What's your effort? What's your attitude?
Right.
And do you have all the answers, or are you kind of curious and growth minded?
That's right.
And work through challenging moments. So as we think about just kind of challenging moments and growth opportunities for you in your journey, I mean, what moments come to mind for you that forced you to maybe look yourself in the mirror a little bit harder and I need to get better from this situation? Any learning lessons?
Yeah. It's interesting. I would say, as I've moved into my 50s, I would say the last, 5 to 10 years has been a more reflective time.
Okay.
And the reason is I think when we're in our 20s, 30s, and 40s, we're in a survival mode, especially if you've got kids, right?
Yeah.
You're in survival mode. You're trying to perform and earn money and lead an organization, whatever the role might be. And you're also trying to be at home as a spouse, as a father. And a lot of times it's survival. And I would say I've been in that mode in various times. As my kids have gotten older, both my wife and I think, have been more reflective of what do we want to do? How can we be more intentional? And I think part of it is being in your 50s. It's like, I've got some of that wisdom. I've got some of that strength to share. And so you look forward of how can you share that? And so I think for me personally, that reflection has been important around, how do I get better? How do I work on my own stuff that might be holding me back, might be triggering me? A lot of my own leadership philosophy is inside out, right? I have to work on the inside. I have to work on myself. I can only become the best version of my limited self based on whatever those limitations might be from my upbringing or whatever triggers me. And so I've had to do some of the work, frankly. And when you say challenges, like, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you go back and you're like, oh, you look back in your childhood or whatever, and you're like, oh, that's why I respond in that way. How can I now respond differently? I think the more I become aware and free of those things, it allows me to be a better husband. It allows me to be a better father. In some ways, it allows my kids to be more free and my wife to be more free, because I'm able to show up better in that.
I want to unpack this a little bit more, because I think this is critical for whether you're leading people or not. You're leading yourself.
That's right.
How do we self lead better? And it's through reflection. It's through self awareness. And that's what you just talked about right there. So being more reflective, and Arthur Brooks has got a book called From Strength to Strength. And it's like, like the second half of life, and like giving back on the way. It's a great book. But for you, as you're growing in this at this time in your life through reflection, what does that look like? How do you do it? Do you have a framework?
Yeah. It's interesting. There's a lot of people that make a lot of money on trying to tell you how to do this, right? And I know you've had some amazing podcast guests who have some really, really thoughtful and intentional routines. I would say for me, it starts with anchoring each day, each morning. And I focus on things like movement. So as I get up in the morning, I know you've got your habit stacking approach that you do, which I think is tremendous. Yeah. For me, it's what kind of movement. It could be a workout, it could be stretching, it could be yoga, but it is movement. I also do some breath work and meditation. So there's, anchoring into my faith, anchoring into just my being. We mentioned the word alignment. I know for myself, if I can align my head, sometimes I'm in my head a lot, with my heart and my spirit, my soul, my gut, I know I can show up better each day. So in the morning, when I'm doing some of that reflection, when I'm doing some breath work, when I'm doing some movement, sometimes I'll do a little bit of journaling. There's some declarations I look at for myself. That's all anchoring. That creates an awareness. I've had for a while a life coach, and I've got a second one that helps me kind of stay aligned. And one of the things he was talking about was these declarations that kind of anchor you when you go off, when you kind of, go off askew. It allows you to kind of come back and remember, that's who I am. That's that. Oh yeah, I'm someone who wants to be a rising tide for everyone. Was I doing that before? And you're like, I didn't show up that way. So it allows me to kind of recenter. So I find anchoring each day, taking a little bit of time, getting up in the morning, doing that intentionally, then sets the rest of the day so that when I get thrown off, maybe when I'm not my best, it kind of bounces me back in to where I want to be.
That's good. I'm happy we unpacked that because I think it's critical. I know it's critical to wake up and get some wins for yourself before you show up to whatever workplace or whatever thing is on your agenda for the day. But how do you get some personal wins and alignment of who you are and what matters in life before the world comes at you? So yeah, thanks for sharing that. You mentioned a life coach. You mentioned, people and businesses that you worked with and for. Who's been mentors for you? Who has it been? And what are some things that stand out when you think about those individuals? I'm sure there's quite a few.
There are. I've been blessed. I find from a career perspective, each major stage along the way, there's been someone that I can point to. And in fact, I will reach out to them periodically and just be like, hey, thank you. Yeah. You were tremendous. You're a great leader. And those individuals have been tremendous. I would say that the first, though, for me has been my wife. It's amazing when you get married, you find that person. She often acts as a mirror, right? When I grew up and was dating and whatnot, I felt like I had pretty good family. All was good, right? And I think a little bit ignorantly, we had no issues. And then you get married or you start dating, and my wife would be like, hey, do you know this? And it's like, oh yeah, right? And I think what she has done is created a lot of that awareness for me and made me better. And I think I, in turn, have made her better. And this has been our journey for, gosh, we're married now going on 27 years actually this year. Should get that right. And we talk about, it's like we've been married 5 different times throughout our life. But I think that we are almost mentoring each other. So I would start there, that she has been the most significant. And then I have people that have been bosses and mentors along the way, coaches along the way that have encouraged me to be better, have given me context around maybe when I feel like, gosh, I really messed up on something. They come back and say, hey, you know what? Let me give you a little different perspective. Here's how it really is, right? Because sometimes we can be our own worst critic. Yeah. And they give a reframe. You're like, oh, that's a really good perspective. And it just helps soften things in life.
But I'm sure you're an individual that looks at those failures as opportunities for growth and learning. And I think this is important that you're open about that in those moments of like, we didn't hit the standard or we just fell short, whether it's a loss or a failure, you're learning from it and you're sharing that with others, allowing them to give you perspective.
That's right.
And viewing it as a learning opportunity. And I love that you just said that your marriage is a journey.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife and I had breakfast yesterday, and we were just talking about how I show up in settings, and I show up in a certain way with my personality, and I can't change a lot of that. What I can do is become more self-aware of these things. So I need her to help be a mirror for me, but also give me some grace.
Yes, right. We all need grace. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, what's some advice that you give to, what do you give to your kids or younger you that you wish you would have had?
Yeah. So we, in our family, and a lot of this I have to give credit to my wife, but we have conversations. It is, and sometimes our kids will roll their eyes like, do we need to have this conversation now? It's not uncommon when we come together, when it's just less and less given the kids going out in the world, but we will be at the dinner table and we'll have cards. So Esther Perel has as a deck of cards, and we'll pull cards out.
I love it.
And it's like, let's go beyond. Let's not have the small talk. Let's dive deep. And so I think both as individuals, as a married couple, and just even kind of mission is like, let's have the hard conversations. Let's go deep to understand ourselves, not just for the sake of having it, but to better understand ourselves. And I think very simply, it's like, do the work. But it's hard to do the work if you're not asking yourself questions that are reflective, that help you get to know yourself better. We had last weekend, my daughter came over. She's a freshman at Notre Dame. She brought over 9 of her friends, and they were getting ready for a dance. And they come in, they're sitting in the living room there, and it's just my wife and them. I'm actually wasn't in the room. But my wife asked a question. She said, what is it that you didn't get when you were younger that you wish you had? And what proceeded from that was this amazing sharing.
Yeah.
Everyone with tears sharing, and then they have tears for each other, right? And like, to me, like, that's part of young people. Like, do the work, dig in, have the hard conversations. Even it takes courage to have it sometimes. And I think that's part of our mantra. If I look at what my wife and I hope to do, try to do, is to bring that in the world with individuals we connect with. And it's sometimes the same at work, right? Having those conversations, asking those questions to create that internal alignment that I believe translates into how people show up.
The growth that comes from vulnerability.
Yes.
Which isn't fun to do, but
that's right.
There are studies, there's statistics, there are facts around significant growth that occurs when vulnerability and trust is present.
That's right.
That's a great story. My kids are 4 and 6, and it's always after we spend time praying before the food, it's all right, who's got the question? What's the question?
That's beautiful.
And it's around this idea of how do we continue to date each other?
Yes.
Rather than just being married and being father-son and mother-son, those relationships, how do we just view our relationship as dating? I just want to get to know you.
I love that.
And that mindset shift back in 2025 has really helped me for those moments where, all right, would I much rather put on the TV? Yes. I'd much rather watch a show and just be passive. No.
Yeah.
Let's date each other.
I think it's interesting to add to that, Craig, that I think as men, as guys, as dads, and I this is part of even my own reflection. I think we can get so busy that we can check out. And I even told my wife this. I'm like, hey, and my kids this is even some of the being vulnerable, which is, I know throughout my career at times, like, man, I wasn't all there. I wasn't as present. Some of it was like, I was exhausted. I'd come home and I knew I was safe.
Yeah.
Things were good. My wife had things, and for a while, she was a stay-at-home mom. It was awesome. And then she went to work. She's launched her own life coaching business. Like, she's amazing and done these things. And when I would come home, I knew I was in good hands.
Yeah.
But I also, upon reflection, also acknowledged, like, I wasn't all there. And my kids will say, yeah, Dad, you were checked out on some things.
Sure.
And doing the best we can. But what I love about what you're saying, and I think this is the challenge for us as leaders, as fathers, as husbands and leaders in an organization, I think it's natural and easy for us to show up at work because that's the mode and role we have. I think to make sure we're showing up each day at home and engaged and doing our part is an important one. And I hear what you're saying is like, you're being intentional about that. That dating, like, that requires active engagement, which is really cool.
Yeah. And it's part of my morning alignment too. And it's my prayer is don't let me be in the moment, whatever that moment requires, but let me be in it.
Present.
And then just let me not miss a God moment personally. Looking for top talent in tech or professional fields? ABRO Talent connects businesses with exceptional candidates, specializing in tailored recruiting solutions that match the right skills to your team's needs. Whether building a team or searching for a tough-to-fill position, ABRO Talent delivers the expertise you need to hire smarter, faster, and with more confidence. Let us help you find your next star employee. Gosh, as we start to close this conversation out, I've got, 2 questions for you. One, really curious about the things that you do intentionally for growth and for learning and continuous improvement. Books, podcasts, seminars. You mentioned the life coach. I guess, what are some things that you intentionally have done over time that you've seen a big ROI personally?
Yeah. You hit on part of it. I am investing in myself more through being maybe uncomfortable. So you talked about the studies around growth, right? Growth, when you're comfortable, less growth happens. When you're uncomfortable, more growth happens. So part of I've got 2 coaches. One, she's worked with me off and on for 25 years. So she knows me. Another one, a gentleman who's challenged me. Like my first call with them, he's like, well, what do you want to achieve? And I rattled some things off and he's like, I don't know what the hell you just said. He's like, what? And he actually used some other expletives within it. It wasn't, and he just looked at me and it knocked me back. And I'm like, got it. And he challenged me and he's like, dude, what are you trying to do? Like, what do you really want to do?
Right.
And so individuals like that I've done a retreat here and there that's more experiential, that's going a little bit deeper, taking time to do that. I want to do more of that.
Yeah.
So those investments I think are important. And then there's small things that, it's reading books. Certainly there's podcasts, right? To listen and learn from that. I mean, I'm continually consuming information on AI because it will be, everything around us. So it's like, okay, and how do I apply that where I can? And then I think the last piece is how do I surround myself with people that are going to make me better? Right. And people who are trying to be better, people who challenge me. And so how do I find individuals? How do I make sure in conversations, dinners or whatever, people that continue to challenge me, challenging themselves to grow? I think those are all things that I try to do to help me get a little better each day.
I'm going to scratch my last question because I want to follow up on what you just said there. There's different levels of leadership that we all experience, and it all starts with leading ourselves. You mentioned the individuals that are helping you take another step in your journey and pushing you. And how do you find those? How do you level up?
Yeah.
What's that look like as you're trying to find who's going to help me with this next step?
Yeah. It's a great question. And I wish I had the easy answer.
Sure. Yeah.
What I have found is there's certain people we know in our life that we're like, that person just, it's a frequency, right? It's sometimes it's not tangible X, Y, and Z. It's a frequency when you're around them. And I talked about, the rising tide, raising all boats. That person makes you better just by being around them. And to me, it's when you see that person, then it's like, okay, find ways to spend time with that person. And who are they spending time with? Those are the clues and the hints. I also think it's just trying new things. Like this, there's a men's group that my coach has that he invited me into. And there's guys that are leaders of their own business and they're pushing the envelope and they're showing up in different ways. And so how do I be part of that? So I think you have to get creative. You have to reach out to things that might be interesting, maybe a little scary, and to see, there's individuals that are doing that. Okay, I think that's going to push me and help me grow within that as well. Yeah,
a mentor of mine, it said, Craig, there's just different altitudes, right? You're at one altitude, and then somehow you find yourself poking your head up through the clouds, and you're looking around, you're like, who's in this room? Who's up here? What's going on up here?
It's palpable, right? You're just like, wait, where have I been?
Yeah. I thought I got to this. No, there's another level, and then so there's always another level. But I will say, based off of my experience, and this would be some advice that I would give to anybody that is seeking somebody that maybe is hard to get in touch with, that they know they'll get significant value from by just being around them, to your point. Show up with a curious agenda, learn, apply, and that individual, no matter where they're at in their life, they're willing to help. They're willing to take another, as long as they see growth in you. So also show up in a way that values their time versus how do I just take? Like, what can you also give in the moment?
I love what you said on that. And it reminds me of one of our second oldest, Ben. He's on an amazing journey of self-discovery. He's building his own business. He's becoming a coach for young men to help them get their mojo.
Yeah.
And one of the things he learned early on, and I don't know, he didn't learn it from me necessarily, but he found that he could connect with individuals and get responses and engagement if he showed value. So he basically started doing projects for free for guys. And that's how he got some of these jobs. Like he found himself literally on a phone call with Lewis Howes, who is one of these amazing podcasters who's got lots of followers, just through that process, just random, and found other mentors and jobs by doing that. People that he didn't know initially, but he's like, I like who they are. I like what they're doing. I think I can add value. And he just started doing some projects or research and being really thoughtful and creative within that. And they're like, okay, I need that. Or I don't need exactly that, but I need that. And if you can do that, great. I'm going to do an internship and maybe it's free within that.
Yeah.
And so I think your point's right on, which is as a young person, don't be afraid, put yourself out there and then show value in whatever you're doing and it'll be recognized.
Well, we'll close this out, but I do want to say, just based off what you just said with your son and the business that he's started, I think there is a huge gap of these young people that have been in sports, right? You bring up the word sports and we got stories of growth and achievement and fun. But then after, let's say at 18 years old, because I don't know, 1% of high school athletes, maybe less than that, go and play at the college level. You don't really have somebody pushing you at that level.
That's right. Until
you reach an executive or a leadership position, you find yourself, I should probably get a coach. Mm-hmm. So there's like this gap of, as you're kind of wondering in life and what's happening, what's next, like there is a gap there for somebody. No, like you need to be coached still. So I love that he's doing that. I think there's a tremendous opportunity in every market for that because we all need it. Final thoughts. As we close this thing out, give us just anything about ABRO? What excites you the most about what is next here? And then maybe a leadership thought, or I don't know. The floor is yours. You know how I close this thing out.
I love it. From an ABRO perspective, I just harken back to the generational opportunity. I am so fired up about the opportunity with some of the amazing leaders. We've got all of them. I mean, we've got amazing people at ABRO. We're 30 plus people. We're a small group of a mighty group, but the generational opportunity to continue to evolve and infuse that energy and support the team to map the next 45 years out. Like what Peter has done is tremendous. And so I'm just excited where we can go, what's possible. We have a tremendous business model in place, and one that we've done some really interesting, unique things. And I think we can continue to do that. So from an ABRO perspective, I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
Perspective. From a leadership, I just continue to encourage us all to do our work. Just continuing to create that awareness, try to be uncomfortable, create some daily practices to help us, stay anchored.
Right.
So that when we go out to serve others, right, which is part of it, right, anchored in our faith, anchored in our belief, in our values, that we can be the best we can be, because we can be limited if we're not trying to work through those things. So I think just as a leader, I think that's an important thing, and that daily practice is just so important.
Well, I want to give ABRO and Peter and the culture that's built here a little bit of a shout out. I've now interacted with a few individuals here, and an individual that was in the room before we went live, 2 individuals said, this wasn't the career choice when I first started. But then I think the quote, and I wrote it down, people tend to stick around here. And I think that's pretty special to say that about your company. So
thank you.
Welcome to the ABRO team.
I'm
excited to see what's going to happen domestically in addition to what's been happening internationally for the company. So, well, that's it for this week's episode of the Path Less Travel podcast. Until next week, have a great day.